Hello. Hello, hello. Give me one moment to finish what I'm working on the other screen. Why does every website have to be different? I don't want to create an event. I don't want to create an event. Just let me do the thing. Yeah, I think I got it working. I think. Maybe. Alright, yeah, I think I got it working. Here's hoping. Alright, alright. I hope everyone's having a great day today. Make sure everything else is working. Da, 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 da. Alright, alright, alright. Everyone is doing fantastic today. If you can hear my cats in the background, they are having a great time with this wonderful weather outside. Alright. Sorry for the delay. I'm just trying to get everything set up on every other page that we have to deal with, as you do. Alright. So, today we're going to be working on creating this thing, the Meat Colossus, this massive undead being creature. I've already got all of the references lined up. I've scaled it correctly. This little man here is 6 feet tall. The figure next to him, he himself is 12 feet tall. So we're all ready to go in just a moment. Feel free to chat. Let me know if anything is busted. Not sure if audio is working. Oh no. One moment. Let's check that out. Technical difficulties. Feel free to chat. Let me know if anything is busted. Not sure if audio is working. Oh no. I can hear it when I tune in on my phone. So, one moment. Let's check that out. Technical difficulties. Yeah, I can hear it on my end. Is it still broken? Waiting to hear back. Sound test? Yeah, I can hear it when I do a sound test. Hold up. You gotta love technical difficulties. Yeah, I can hear playing on my phone. Yeah, it sounds playing just fine on my end. So yeah, that is probably on your end. Alright. Let me know if that continues being a problem. I will fix it if I can. Okay. Yeah, it must just be on your end. Alright, either way, we're gonna get started on this absolute behemoth. I'm gonna start by creating a little plane. There we go. What I'm going to do first is, you always want good edge loops when you're doing stuff like this. So I'm going to start with his eyeballs, or his eye sockets, I guess, in this case. I can even throw on a nice mirror modifier here. That way I only have to do half the work. Your computer does not like me, apparently. Alright. I'm going to work on getting this all lined up. We want to get the shape close to begin with. That helps us tremendously when we actually get into it. Yeah, apparently your computer does not like the sound of my voice. It is protesting. Which, how dare it? That's very rude of it. You should have a talk with that computer about hurting feelings. backwards. There we go. Oh no, my one reference is actually a bit shorter than the other one. I did not line them up well. Push him up a bit. Well, that's closer. As a great Captain Barbossa once said, it's closer to guidelines than actual rules. That is me setting up references. To be perfectly honest. Alright, I'm going to grab you. Shoot to the inside frame. Grab the outer ones. Push them to the edge here. Push it to the limit. Usually I'm working with, obviously, an eyeball, but in this case it's an eye socket, so it's gonna have some bits that are a bit wonky to begin with. You know, we're kind of making a void. Not the happiest with how this looks yet. Ah, that's why. Because this inside one is way too far in there. I was wondering why there was a random bit. Are you the same? Yeah, you're the inside one. Okay. Here we guys. There we go. That way I don't have to flip around as much. It should be a much more pleasant viewing experience. I hope everyone's having a wonderful day today. To reiterate what we're doing, we're making this Meat Colossus in 3D. We're doing it by form of what we call polygon modeling. So I'm actually building out the shape polygon by polygon. Go ahead and say hello if you're joining us. Always good to hear from people. Tell me how your day's been. Hope it's been going good. Been really nice out. Just sort of a casual stream. Showing off how we make these things. Yeah, if you have questions, throw them out there. Well, if you just want to talk, that's also a good time. So yeah, now we have a nice ring around the eye. I can actually get rid of that centerpiece for now, just to make it pretty clear where we are and what we're working on here. Yeah, now that it's a ring, it's a lot easier to tell what's in front, what's in back. Ooh, we have a bit of a weirdness happening here. Which direction are you trying to face? Ah, that's why. Here, I'm gonna line you up with that nice cheekbone protrusion. A little bit smaller. A lot of fiddly bits when you're doing stuff like this. Okay. Push out a new ring. Work from there. One big difficulty is usually this is where I would start making where the nose is going to go, but his nose is just a hole. So I actually have to worry about not going over top of it on accident. Give him a nice brow ridge here. He's got very powerful brows. Stern brow, if you will. Bit of a stern man in his youth. This I'm going to start pulling to match this very defined cheekbone. Let me know if the audio is odd, like if the music's too loud or I'm speaking too soft. I can adjust both of those as needed. Because I can't hear it. Mainly because I don't want to be confusing my own brain about what I'm hearing, because I'll be able to hear myself and that'll throw me all kinds of off. Woo! But that gives us a nice form to work with. I want to leave a little gap here because I want his cheekbone to be its own. Hey, I'm glad here. Be its own ring. I'm gonna extrude out that defined cheekbone a bit. Try to keep this in the middle. You'll always notice, unless you have an absolutely world-class concept artist, a lot of times your side and your front references will be a little off. They won't be perfect, especially if you're using like real-world references, because obviously the person's not going to be standing perfectly when they're turning around. So a lot of times you gotta split the difference between the two. Oh, am I that quiet? Hang on. Hang on, hang on, hang on. Alright, is that better? I changed a bit of my settings. I think my... oh, sorry. I think my compressor was a little bit too aggressive, so it was making me very quiet. Tell me if that's better. Or worse. It could have gotten worse. Okay. Okay, so everything was good. It was just quiet. Gotcha. Well, I can... let me turn up the music a bit. Okay, so that tells me that that's what it is. Let me adjust that a bit more. All right. I have adjusted quite a bit of the settings. Wow, I can see the waveform that I'm a lot louder now. Okay, I think that's better. I'll let you guys confirm if you are or not, if it is or not. That could be why we had like two people jump in and then immediately leave. They probably couldn't hear me. All right, technical difficulties aside, let's continue making a skeleton. This kind of point like that. There we go. Well, welcome back. Nice to have you back. Music needs a little bump. Okay. I'll bump it up by 2%. There we go. Turns out I went a little bit too overzealous with the compressors, and they were just making me quiet. Did not need them as aggressive as it was. All right, we got his nice cheekbones, so now we can focus on his brow line. I always find that the side view, especially around the brow, is just a jumbled mess most of the time. Because there's just so many of them that are overlapping each other. Yeah, I want his brow to be overlapping a bit so we get this nice crescent, not crescent, indent, I guess you would call it, on the side of the head where the temple is. Welcome to those just joining us. I see a couple new ones in there. Hope you're having a fantastic day. Feel free to chat. Tell us how your day's going. We're just hanging out, building a monstrosity, having fun, answering all the questions about how the sausage is made. Or in this case, the meat man. Oh no. If I move this up just a little bit, it freaks out and has a problem. We're going to leave it where it is. There we go. Now we've got the start of the bridge of his nose. Oh, that's why it's having trouble. Because this one is really low. No wonder it's freaking out trying to figure out what I'm trying to do with it. There we go. Sometimes you just gotta pop out and see what's happening in 3D, because angles can only get you so far. There we go. Well, how's the character family chart going now? Did you make any progress? Move that a bit forward. There we go. Oh, he looks a little surprised. That tells me that this entire chunk of his eye needs to get moved back a bit. There we go. Hey, look, it's less of a jumbled mess. Look at that. Happy days. Not really, okay. Well, at least you can hopefully vibe out and work on it now. Good coffee. All right. So now we've got what I like to describe as the superhero mask. We've just got the eyes, over the nose, and the cheekbones. Move this up a bit, give us a little bit more wiggle room to finish this loop here. There we go. Now, what do I mean by loops? Well, whenever you're designing anything in 3D, but especially if you're designing a face like this, you want them to have loops around their eyes, their mouth, their jaw, so that way when you animate it, it moves in a way that you expect. So, for instance, right now we have one around his eye socket that loops all the way around. Now, this one's a little wonky. I may not want it to actually loop all the way like this, where it's cutting vertically. I want it to go over his nose, so that way the entire loop is, as I mentioned, like a superhero mask. So I'm actually going to get rid of you and extrude one. Oh, the music is talking to me. Hello, hello, sir. Thank you for joining us, old-timey announcer. The shuttle has left the tower, gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen. Congratulations. I did not know that this video had audio in it, or dialogue, rather. Now we know. Where is that? Oh, it's all the way down there, that's why. Give. Give. There we go. It's a lot of kind of pushing and pulling, trying to make circles out of a not circle, out of a very much a not circle, which can get tedious, but that's kind of the name of the game. Hey, there we go. Now we've got a nice loop around the cheekbone and on the top of the head. Which, while this guy's probably not going to be the most expressive, he's a skeleton after all, at least we have comfort that it will work if we ever need him to. Okay, this actually needs to get moved up a little, because that's supposed to be the end of his nose. But, you know, good news. That means we've got more room to play than I thought we did. Yeah. Then we will continue on his full head. Although looking at him, he's definitely got more of a 5 head. What would you call this hairline? I call this the midlife crisis. We'll pull it back to match the front. The hardest part when you're doing like the slope of the forehead is your vertices are going to start pretty close to each other because they're all bunched up around the brow. And you want them to spread out by the time you get to the top of the head, otherwise you end up with really weird creases a lot of the time right at the top of the head. Excuse me. There we go. You can see we've left ourselves open for a new edge loop right here. This is the back of the jaw, the cheekbone, so I do want it to be behind the front part there. But I want it to be flat so I can go around. Like this. Yoink. Usually I would use this to design the jaw muscles, but since his has a giant gap right in the middle, I want to leave that for a little bit further down the line. Okay, that should be in line with that. There we go. I want to patch these two up. Pull this out a bit because it's very clearly having a bit of issue. There we go. Yeah, you always want to switch your view. You don't want to get stuck in what we call paralysis, where you're just stuck looking at it from one or two angles. Because it may look great from those two angles, but the moment you go to 3D view, you're going to notice it might have a little bit of issue. Once you add that third perspective, all bets are off. Ghost Rider. Oh, I mean, sorry. Nondescript skeleton rider. Legally distinct. We don't need Marvel coming after us. There we go. And because we're so low poly right now, it's going to have a bit of weird geometry going on. Because Blender doesn't know what to do with it. Straighten out. Alright, I'm going to keep this tilted backward, but I want to push it over to the side here so that we can start building his tooth area, his teeth area, jaw area, face area. Yes and no. Which we have, thankfully, a almost perfect face right here for that. Just have to scooch it around the nose a bit. There we go. Alright, now I'm just going to ignore his nose. We'll fill it in a moment. There we go. Tuck that up a bit so we get a little bit of that nice shelf of the bottom of his bone. There we go. I want to connect this right in the middle. And now, because this is going to get connected at some point, I do want to match the number of vertices above and below the nose. That way we have something to actually connect to. There we go. Probably like a cool mask, honestly. Pushing this back a bit to give that curve a bit more steepness. And before we continue fully, I want to get this at least to the bottom of where the jaw meets the top of the mouth. We'll add the teeth in later. So right now, if we try to model the teeth in, it's going to be difficult. We're going to end up with so many vertices, it's going to be hard to work with. has a very steep cliff face there. And yes, I'm referred to it as a cliff face. For how many vertices we're messing with, that's pretty good. Like, we don't have very many, so the detail's not going to be spectacular. So, we take what we can get. Making sure to save. The last thing I want to do is lose all of this. Okay, and now we need to build the other side, the jaw. Which I want to stay disconnected, so I'm going to duplicate. There we go. Exactly. I don't want to be an hour in and have to pray that the autosave did something helpful. Like, Blender's got some pretty good autosave system, but I don't want to put it through a stress test. Let's put it that way. Those wondering what this absolute creature is for, it's going to be used for our tabletop system that we're coming out with, Armor and Arcana. This thing is going to be on the front cover. I'm going to be attempting to render this to look kind of like a painting, because I think it might look nice, and I'm hoping I can make it look good enough that it can play front and center on the cover. That is the plan, at least. We all know what they say about plans and first contact with the enemy. It's not a good time. Okay, I'm going to sculpt his chin first. Get him that nice chin strap going. So I think something this big needs a powerful chin. Right now he looks like Skeletor's wide cousin. Part of this is we do want it to have a loop that goes from the teeth up the jaw. That way it can move nice and naturally. There was a problem with my jaws lining up from profile to front view. Not sure why. My profile is always slimmer than my front view. I've kind of got a outline of how I want the jaw to look. A little bit of a tuck on his face. This is a great example of what I was discussing earlier, which is your front and your side reference may not line up great, so you're going to have to split the difference. Oh. Move his center of his chin up just a bit, right in the middle here, so he gets kind of that protruding look. For him specifically, I want a lot of angles on his design. He's supposed to be powerful and, you know, very intimidating, and, well, the more angles on his face, the better he'll look. Let's put it that way. There we go. Oh yeah, we're getting there. Without the rest of his head, this truly is a bizarre sight. He looks like a Necron. I'm going to try and match this to the width of his jaw here, so I can use these two to swirl up. Alright, let's start building. Hey, that's looking really good, actually. I say shocked at my own ability that I've been doing for years. One of those things, though, just because you know you can do it doesn't mean it doesn't shock you every time you do it. Hey, good job on the charts. Another line right here, because otherwise I don't think we'll be able to connect it correctly. There we go. Yeah, this makes us that nice loop. There we go. So yeah, now we have a nice loop that goes around the jaw. You want nice loops so that way if you have to add more, you don't end up jumbled up. He has the side of his head. Absolutely bizarre individual. What is my relationship with my creatures that I make? Bullying. Lots of bullying. Okay. Now that we've made that loop, we can extend his head a little further. You want to get as much detail as you can with the least amount of vertices, so that way when you start adding more vertices, all of it can go to a good use. So in areas like this where it's very straight, you don't need vertices close to each other. You can space them out a bit and try to get a bit better shape utilizing here. Like that. See, now we have nice big flat plates. He still looks like a Necron. We're going to ignore that. I gotta remember to adjust from the front view to make sure that his head doesn't stay weirdly flat. There we go. Somehow made his head like straighter in the side chart. Err. Take a break from that for a second. To give him some eyelids. If anyone in chat is a biologist of any kind, let me know where the ocular hole is supposed to be, because I'm just going to put it straight in the back. I don't know if that's where it's supposed to go, but that's where we're putting it. I'm going to put one right there so I can make it actually rounded. There you go. Now he looks angry. Now with those extra vertices we put around here, I can mess with his nose too. There we go. Oh, he's got such a big nose. Now, one thing that's not in his reference, but I do want to add is, and I don't know what it's called, but that piece in the middle of your nose, that cartilage that goes up and down, this thing. I want that to be pretty noticeable. There we go. I don't know, it feels more cartoony if we don't have that, so I want to make sure it exists. There we go. I am going to work on the inner part of his mouth because he does have a tongue, weirdly enough, as a skeleton. So I'm going to have something inside there. I can't just block it off like I did with the eyes and the nose here. So I'm going to come in here. We're going to get to work. Give him a little space to work with here. Kind of a little area to put the mouth parts. Because he's going to have a pretty long tongue. I do want to push this back a bit. Give it room to actually sit in here without having to mesh through too much geometry. Obviously, it doesn't have to be perfect because you won't really be able to see it very well. It'll be covered in darkness. But I will know, and it will annoy me if I don't give it at least a little bit of wiggle room here. Gonna make a bit of a shelf too. For when we eventually add his teeth, it's something for them to sit on. There we go. Took me a moment there. I had to feel with my tongue how far down the actual like bone part of your teeth go on the bottom there. Surprisingly far. You'd be surprised how much of 3D modeling, even when you're modeling something like this, is you looking at yourself and going, is that right? Is that normal? And that looks like an N-gon, but it is not. That is a polygon. Those are allowed. It's just a really squishy one. Oh no. we are missing a line here. There we go. Nice drop off. Area for the tongue to sit. Area for our, teeth to sit. So I'm just going to make this gap a little bigger. Just so when we put the teeth in, they got a little room to sit. There we are. Ah, no. Go back from whence you came. There we go. It might say something when I look at his teeth, and the first word that pops into my head is dainty. I don't think dainty is what I should be thinking, but thus is how my brain works. Okay. Man, low poly Skeletor. Yeah. If you're wondering, yes, I do make those noises when I'm doing it by myself too, even when I'm not streaming. It's just how my brain is. I like to vocal stim random noises. Okay. No, wrong one. Boom. Speaking of rocketry, anyone here see the Artemis mission when it went off? That was kind of cool. We went back to the moon. Technically, we flew around it, but it was still awesome. I actually watched it launch live. That was interesting. I mean, obviously I wasn't alive for the Apollo program, so it was nice to see. Nice to see us doing something in space that isn't just throwing a probe at the problem. Did I add an extra one that shouldn't exist? I think I did. Dissolve. Yes, I did. Aha, there we go. Okay, then we're going to bring this up. Since this entire area has to be open to the sky. So, we're now going to basically go around the entire loop until we connect to where we started here. Then we will have a working jaw. Although I will want to leave a gap right here in the back, so that way we can have the tongue stick through. Hey. Yeah, let's give this a bit of a curve so we can have an area for the tongue to stick in. Or, I guess the tongue to spawn from would be the way of saying it. There we go. That is so weird looking on a skeleton. Okay. I'm gonna add this little gap here. Well, not gap, but plate, so that way we kind of have a bottom to the jaw. Because even though we're going to fill this in fully, and the neck comes out here, we do want it to be pretty defined when it comes to how the jaw looks, which we can only achieve by having geometry there. It's also where we will stick out the neck, so we want to have it about where the neck's going to come out. Then I'll shape it to match the shape we eventually want for the actual neck. There we are. Okay. Now, continue making the skull so we can get that fully entombed. And then we can start figuring out how we're going to do the sinew of his neck. Very likely how I'll do that is I'll create the core of his neck, and then the sinew I can attach around it. It's probably the best move for actually making it look nice and not overcrowding the model. Right now, we're not going to get really good circles. We don't have enough vertices for a circle, like a proper circle, so it's gonna look a little bit messy, and that's fine. We all look a little bit messy when we're first getting started. There's probably a life lesson in there somewhere. I'll leave that to others to figure out. Something messiness leads to beauty. I don't know. Make sure his head kind of becomes thicker near the back. Gotta give him some room for his brain. There's a good question. Do skeletons have brain? Like, clearly they shouldn't, right? They're just bone, but like, can they? If you had a skeleton that still had its brain, would it also be a zombie? Like, technically. Would you have to use two different spells? Alright. Oh, there's his head. With an area slotted out for his very thick neck. Absolute chungus necky over here. Just making his jaw a little bit more noticeable. Since the mandible itself is supposed to be stuck in there. Somehow. Alright. I'm checking something. Give me a second. Alright. So I think I'm actually going to move his head back a little bit so we can get this big tendon in here. Now see, that makes sense. Yeah, like a skeleton is the end point of a zombie. It's sort of like, you know, plutonium becomes lead, becomes uranium, becomes lead. I feel like it's the same way for a zombie. It's like you have a zombie, which then deteriorates into a skeleton, which then turns into a ghost. Like, I feel like that is the end goal of an undead creature. Yeah, I've made the neck a bit wider so that way we can actually grab the whole thing here. Now, first attempt of bringing down the neck. Main goal once I made the neck, usually for me, is to space out these vertices. Because the last thing I want to do is add more. Especially when we've got this many to work with. So I usually try to space them out a bit, clean them up a bit at this stage before I start making more of the neck. Yeah, it's the unlife cycle. It is the stages of undeath. There we go. We've spaced out the vertices on the neck a bit. You can already see it's beginning to become absolutely chungus. Gonna start giving him a bit of the shape of his skull near the top here. Like I said, the more information you can inform when it's got limited vertices, the better it will look when you have more to play with. Add stage 2 of big neck. I'm going to keep this up above his shoulder for right now, because as you can see on the front view, we really shouldn't be that far into it yet. This stage is usually when I start straightening out the neck. Because obviously it's coming off diagonal from the head. You want to start straightening it out so it starts facing more and more towards the body at this point. Well, isn't undead reproduction just like the end of a living person? Like, isn't that how more get made? Since they all start from like a living thing. Now, would that make ghosts like the senior citizens of undead? Like, they're kind of the end of the cycle. Okay, now we can start actually making the neck not very thin. I'll thicken it up a bit. Because this thing has some absolute trapezius muscles here. He's a bit of a unit. Yeah, I think the smartest way of doing it is to build sort of a core shape, and then we'll add all the fleshy bits. So I feel like trying to mix those in while we're trying to get the shape would mess us up a bit. Or we want to find an angry zombie. Wouldn't you want to find like a docile zombie to ask? I feel like they'd be more willing to answer your questions. You know, better off would be probably finding a necromancer. I'm sure they would have an actual answer. You see, I'm not a necromancer. I just play one on TV. And every video game that lets me play a necromancer, because that stuff's just cool. Beginnings of a neck. He's starting to look robust. I feel like a hungry zombie could be a happy zombie. At least not angry. See, my main thing here is I want to make sure that I keep these two areas along this, like, tendon on his neck. Because, like, that's a very distinct shape that I want to keep. I don't want that getting lost while we're doing everything else. Oh, yeah. And this will be where it finally gets over to about the shoulder here. Because I want to leave enough room in the neck for this massive shoulder muscle to sit in. There we go. Always make sure to trim your typology. Well, you see, you have somebody else get close to it to distract it while you ask the question. You know, kind of the bait and switch approach. It also assumes the zombie can talk, which depends on the zombie. Like, there have been fictional zombies out there that can talk, so it's not out of the realm of possibility. I mean, I guess if we're going off of, like, Warm Body Rules, great movie, by the way, it'd be easier to talk to them. Like, they have the ability to converse and not be aggressive. There we go. He's got a thick neck. Okay, for that shape, we're going to need these to actually pop out a bit further to the side here. So I'm going to get it looking right, and then I'll adjust the shape as needed. There we go. That is true. I feel like asking a necromancer will be your, like, best bet. You know, they've studied, they've done all the research, they've gotten somebody munched on to answer their questions. Because I don't feel like a zombie would even know, even if they could answer, or if they wanted to answer. I mean, it's sort of like walking up to a random person and asking them how they function. You might get somebody that knows, but they might have also no clue. Okay, there we go. Now we've got that tendon on the back of his head, too. There we go. Save. That is a good point. And a revenant, by default, is incredibly angry. So I don't think they're going to want to answer your questions. So yeah, you may have to seek out a necromancer in that case to actually get a straight answer that isn't rah. All right, what do you guys think so far? I just noticed too the chat is like slinking down the screen. Nope, that broke it more. How do I push you up? I'm not sure how to fix. Oh no, I broke it. Okay, I tried to fix the chat and it got worse, so we're just not going to. Average Reddit conversation. Nope, I'm just breaking it. beefy skeleton. Now at Arby's. So for the next bit, I'm going to start on that big shoulder chest area. So I'm going to grab us an edge loop to start with from the side of his neck. I'm then going to shape oh, he's definitely hungry. Look at him. You know how many calories this guy's gonna have to take in just to function? He is all protein, and all he eats is protein. Oh, no, okay, that one is that one is there. I'm trying to keep these lined up, at least somewhat. There we go. Trying to get a kinda shoulder shape to start with. Okay, that's close. Hey, there we are. Okay, that kinda looks right. The thing is, it's going to be sticking up quite a bit on the side because his mass is such. There we go. Then we extrude it straight back and push it up so we can get that first loop that we need. This is mostly his shoulder. I'm trying to keep it within the shoulder area. There we go. And once again, just like we did with his face, we want nice loops that will help us maneuver him correctly. So for the front, I am going to start making a loop that will go around the bottom of the pectoral muscle. Will mean rotating these a bit because they're going to be very flat otherwise. There we go. Now it actually kind of rotates a bit as it goes around the shoulder instead of just being stuck flat. Because you want your angles to be pointing the right direction. It helps a lot with making edge loops. Hey, look at that. We have a pectoral muscle. Well, kinda. I gotta move these over, but kinda. There. There we go. Then we want to do the same on the back, just for his shoulder mantle. Oh, didn't even notice I had two of them there. Well, happy days. Built some nice, large shoulder blades. I want to make sure it's actually pushed into his body here. There we go. One thing you'll notice is the back is a lot more flat than the front. A lot more muscle connections up front. And now I'm able to select the whole loop all the way around. Use to maneuver them as I see fit. Actually, to move those a little closer so we can get the nice crease of the shoulder blade. Just like before, we want to try and get these vertices to move a little bit out of the way, so that way they're nice and evenly spaced. I want to expand these a bit, because he is supposed to be a large man. A large lad. Okay. Move the shoulder vertices to try and make them a bit more centered. That way they can be used to fold it once we have it rigged. Now, looking at it, we're going to have to connect the loops of the shoulder. Because if we try to add any more full loops like we did with how the shoulder is sitting, it's just going to start getting jumbled up here because how close they are, which we do not want. So, we're going to start figuring out what vertices need to go where, and who needs to connect to what, and if any vertices need to be rethought. There we go. A little bit better shape now. You see, quite a few areas we've gotten pretty lucky. I say luck, it was planned, but you know what I mean. Where it actually lines up quite well in the right area that we want, where we don't actually have to adjust it too much to get the right shape and get everything to connect. Like this, where we have a nice shelf of the trapezius muscle and then the actual shoulder. There we go. Now, where we might have issues is the back. You can see on the front, we've got a lot of vertices because the face is on the front, but we only have a couple on the back. So we're going to have to probably decimate a few of these and leave just the ones that are necessary. Because we don't want to add any more edge loops to the back of the head, because those will circle around to the front. And with how low poly we currently have it, that would just be detrimental. Eventually, we'll add a lot of high poly up to the front, but right now we do not need it. And it would just cause extra issue. There we go. So we simplify it. And then we move it. That way we have a similar number to what we're connecting to. Then because we're now working with less geometry, we will have to move everything around. There we go. Gonna actually move the top of his shoulders up a bit. That way he can feel like he's got a lot more power. I really feel like that mantle is pulling some weight. There we go. See how that already feels like it's got more ability to throw something? There we go. Yeah, at this stage you're really just trying to make muscle groups with the loops, so that way the muscle groups will look nice and clean. Let's pull up a new one and see what we are working with here. Now in the front we may be dealing with an opposite situation we had in the back, where in the back we had too many vertices to connect to. On the front we have quite a bit of vertices to connect to, which is not the worst thing ever. The more vertices we have to connect to, which means the more vertices we have to add, which is the more detail we can add. Which we would be at a loss to figure out what to do with on the back, because there's not that much detail you really need on the back muscles, at least for right now. Like, there's some you can add in with something like a normal map, but for when it comes to just actual structure, it's a very simplistic part of the body. You know, it's mostly just the shoulder blades, which we already have detailed with the amount that we have. That's why I oftentimes have a lot more geometry on the front rather than the back. Because the front's where I want it. You know, the front's where I want all this detail to be. While the back is just kind of flat. Because even these spikes in that are on his back, those are going to be separate pieces of geometry. I'm not going to try and extrude them out of this. Because I feel like trying to extrude it out of this would be not worth it, really. Because as we've been discussing with edge loops and that, trying to extrude it out of that would lead to a lot of geometry that would be cluttered. And I like my geometry to be at least somewhat tidy. You know, it makes my brain happy when I'm seeing it. Actually, looking at it, it doesn't look like we need to add any. Looks like we have the exact right amount. Always good to see. And now this is a triangle, which I don't... Triangles aren't horrible. You can work around them, but if you can avoid them, I like to. So I'm actually going to add another line right here, which I need anyway, to add in more roundness to his top of his chest. And that will make this into a polygon instead. A very triangular polygon, but a polygon, which is the key. And then once I've made it, I can adjust its shape to better show myself where it's actually going to go, where the actual edge loop is. Now you can see it starts here and it goes around the side, which is fine. That just will connect under the arm effectively, which is good. As long as it goes somewhere useful, that's what you're worried about. You don't want an edge loop that just goes off into nowhere and doesn't attribute to anything, doesn't help anything. Using these vertices to kind of shape the shoulder joint a bit more. There we go. So I want the shoulder to be defined, but I don't want it to be sharp, if that makes sense. Also trying to keep these kind of in the middle. That way they bend nice when we rig it. Okay. Actually, I could probably bring this up a bit. Looking at where it's going to form the actual collarbone. I think that'll be a good use of it. I'm going to pull these up too as well to keep that shape nice and rounded. There we go. Now he's got big pectoral muscle. I feel like I'm going to keep fighting with this. This little shape here. Like, it's technically correct, but my brain does not like it because it's so close to what's right above it. So let me try spacing these out a bit. Okay, yeah, my brain likes that a lot better. It's less angry about it. There we go. So now we have the upper... I'm sure there's an actual term for it, but the upper chest area, the padded chest area. Okay. So that would make the next step the actual bottom of the rib cage. As always, questions and comments are welcome, more than welcome. For those of you who've just joined in, you missed the entire conversation about undead life cycle and physiology. You know, that's the kind of conversations we are happy to have here. Where else are you going to have conversations about that? So for the bottom of the ribcage, I'm just going to grab the edge loop from the bottom of his pec. It's the right shape. Might as well use it. And for this one, a lot of the shape comes from, or is more defined on the side, the profile view. So that's what I'm mostly going to use. To try and get everything roughly in position. Okay. And there we have the bottom of the rib cage edge loop. Woo! which I'm going to bring it to shape before I start adding any more or try to connect it to anything. Easier to work with when it looks like this than when it has a bunch of stuff attached to it. Extrude up a bit. And I want a nice ring at the bottom so that way that is defined. At the front, I'm going to use some of this extra bits of geometry to actually form this bone at the front here. There we go. And then connect it up. Push this back a bit because we want it to kind of be this protruding bone area. Something like that. There. That'll give it a nice amount of definition. Might have too much vertices here. Which also partially we want an opening here for the arm to go through, so we actually will want more of a actual edge loop. Okay, I'm gonna move this to about the middle of the rib cage, and then I'll add in more as I need them. There we go. We're starting to form the actual circle of the arm here. pull out a bit because it kind of got shrunk into the chest cavity there. But obviously the back ones are going to have to come flaring out a bit. There we go. I need one more edge loop on the back here. So I have something to connect this up to. There we go. We could probably pull these around a bit. Oh, the shape is looking correct, so maybe we don't have to actually move it that much. Yeah, it might just be that this has to be adjusted a bit. There we go. Excuse me. Now we have that deep rib cage going on. Push you up a bit. We want it to be gently sloping. Hang on, I've got to stretch. All right. Now we're going to do the exact same thing. Bring down an edge loop and we can work on his hips. That up there. Another thing I always have kind of a trouble with is my side view will always be much lower on the size of the hip than the actual front view. There we go. Some nice hips. We're going to start stretching it up to start making his abdomen. Want to give him that bit of a gut, so we want to have this kind of tapered. That'll give us the right shape that we're looking for. Now we can start attaching them. Get our absolute wide boy body. Once again, as I've been mentioning, you gotta get those muscle groups while it's still low poly. Helps yourself tremendously later. There we go. Bit of adjustment here and there. Finish out the shape. Like making sure that his bottom of his rib cage kind of has this shelf to it so it sticks out a bit better. There we are. All we have left is to make the area for the hip joint for the leg to actually stick into. Want to make sure we have enough room the legs can actually fit in here and move without clipping into the body too much and without clipping into each other in the middle. That's one of your biggest issues you'll run into, is that the legs will like to clip into each other. There we go. Gives us something to work with and attach the actual legs to. Personally, I like to build the full column first, so head, torso, chest, and also then the legs. So I'm going to grab our hip joint, I'm going to flatten it down, I'm going to turn it into the bottom area of our knee. Alright, well thank you for joining me. See you next time. Want to make sure that it fully encapsulates the kneecap. Usually with one big loop in the center. That will allow it it to actually bend when we get to that point. One big thing to remember is your leg is not really straight. Kind of has a bit of a curve to it. There we go, kneecap. Well, kind of. Knee brace at this point. There we go. Now, because we're going to want to form this kneecap, we kind of want the bottom to snug right up against it. I'm going to add in 2 more edge loops here, because this is an area that needs a lot of detail, so it's fine if we add a few in this stage of it. Excuse me. Ugh. There we are. And now with these extra vertices, we want to start actually forming the cap. I do want this vertex to be right in the center. But there we have it. We have an actual kneecap. A defined kneecap, I should say. There we go. I'm trying to match the muscle curves on the reference with the actual vertices. That way we can define them a lot easier. So now we have a nice shaped leg. I want to go in 3D and make sure it's roundish, because it can get a little flattened when you're just working in 2D. I'm going to grab the top. I want to make that thigh area. The mid-thigh, specifically. There we go. Now, because I duplicated this both times, it should have the same amount of edge loops as what's above and below it. So it should connect pretty easily. If I don't miss. There we go. And you can see, because we lined up the knee in the right shape, we have a nice definition going all the way up the leg. We may have to taper and move some parts of it as we attach it, because we did have to adjust the leg quite a bit to make the knee shape, so it may not line up perfectly in all aspects. But only having to adjust a few is better than having to adjust everything. There we go. Obviously it looks a little weird right now, but we'll fix that in a moment. That's mainly because we need to space these out a bit more. And pull this down a bit. There we go. That makes his connection a little bit more natural. Well, I say natural, but look at this thing. Nothing about this thing is natural. Intended. Let's use that word. I'm going to want one more loop in here. Start off with. Because this will be where our hip is, which means it's going to need some range of motion. And anywhere that needs a range of motion is going to need a lot of vertices. You're a bit of a chicken leg. He is powerful. There we are. All right, now we can make the ankle. The ankle. Oh, my voice. Jeez. There we go. Get the general shape, and then we can attach it to the top. Sure. I want to use this for a nice shin bone, but I'm going to have to move it over first. There we go. Now we've got a nice sharp edge on the front. Nice shin bone. Then I want to go through and smooth out the rest. So it's going to be very angular coming off of the knee. Like that. Okay. Adding in a bit of the ligaments on the back. And there we have the leg. Alrighty, right. Well, it's been a couple hours. My stomach's starting to rumble because I forgot to eat dinner before starting this. So, I think we're going to leave it there. We got most of them done. Next time, next Wednesday, same time, 5 p.m. Central Standard Time, we will pick back up and continue building him. Keep on the lookout. Have a good day. Have a good night. And everyone, keep on keeping on. Thank you for joining me, and I'll see you guys next time.